You may proceed, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, good evening, everybody. We got everybody out. Okay, perfect. I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll adopt the agenda. I do have one thing to add. If we could add a 5-4 in our agenda, and that will just be community partnership, planning and partnership meeting. I forgot about that. Coming up. All right, so looking for somebody to adopt the agenda for tonight. Thank you, Mark. Seconder, Stephanie. All in favor? Okay, carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof. Anything? Seeing none. Adoption of the minutes from February 25th. It was in our package. Anything that needs correcting on that, or? All right, someone to move the adoption of the minutes. Okay, so thank you, Jennifer. A seconder on that. Stephanie, thank you. All in favor? That's carried. All right, so we're right into our agenda items. So first up is AMO, Association of Municipalities Conference Delegation Request. I believe the deadline is coming up this week. So we just wanted to have a discussion on this and sort of find out from people what kind of things we want to sort of discuss or talk about in our delegation, or put in our delegation form, I guess. That's going. So Maureen, do you have anything to start off with?
Well, it's a new minister, right? So I
Right.
think that it might be good to sort of introduce like who we are and our focus on rural education. I think that I'm wondering if we might want to talk about like 4 competing school boards in our area. Like, I'm wondering if we might want to kind of put a little bit of emphasis on that. I'm not sure what the committee would like to raise as far as an item, but certainly we want to be engaged. So we'll incorporate something like that. If there's anything going, we can always inquire about the moratorium for school closures. So those are the typical things. But I'm wondering if we might want to put a bit of a focus on 4 school boards and whether, like, maybe how we find that is something might not be overly efficient in our area. I'm not sure. Or if we find that the school boards are kind of competing with each other for students, right? And in the rural areas. I think that with Paul Calandra, I'm not sure how many councillors are familiar with Minister Calandra, but he's pretty, I find him to be incredibly direct. I think that depending on what his plans might be, or what his thoughts might be on being the Minister for Education, I think that he will be transparent. He will tell us what he's anticipating will come, or he's pretty good that way, I've found, when he's been in other ministerial roles. But those are just my opening general comments.
Okay, thank you, Marie. Yeah, I would agree that I think the 4 school board thing should be a bit of a focus for us, or whatever. The fact that we're struggling a little bit with trying to engage with all the school boards, and that might be a sort of a thing that we could talk about, I think, or whatever. Other comments from Stephanie?
Sure. Thank you, through you, Jeff. Yeah, I think definitely we want to take advantage of the opportunity. New minister, I think it's important to give an overview of who we are and sort of why we came to be. I mean, it's always good to tie back to our experiences back in 2016. Definitely, I think our context is unique in terms of having those 4 very strong school boards. And I think this is something we talked about in a previous delegation, that I think if we could have like visuals that will help augment that, because I know there's often a perception for other parts of Ontario where certain French language school boards are very, very large in terms of territory, whereas in our case that's not the case. So I think like sort of something with a visual context, I think would be important to sort of help set that stage. and in terms of other and like obviously the competition issue and what it the challenges that it brings, but certainly the topics that we've raised before, I think it's important to raise them again with this new minister. The issues of communication between municipalities and school boards, definitely Bill 98, I think it was something that really emphasized that there should be more communication. So I think it's totally appropriate for us to talk about challenges we've had. And other issues that we've talked about also, like community access of schools. I think that's continuing, that's an ongoing issue. And I think to Maureen's point about Mr. Calandra being a direct individual, but also very fiscally responsible as well. We come back to there's one taxpayer and these are community assets. I think again it's a conversation that would be worthwhile having with him.
Okay. Other comments? Jennifer or Mark? Yeah, Jennifer?
Well, just say that I agree. I guess that was one that I was going to bring up also was community use of schools and
Right.
also collaboration between boards. I think that it's important to have the opportunity to ask some questions too. And certainly the moratorium question is one that we keep asking because we are certainly want to know, and we want to know how that communication is going to roll down to municipalities and to us. But also maybe just flagging too that it's been difficult to engage our school boards. I know later down the agenda, we're talking about the community partnerships meeting that's coming up in June, but there being, other opportunities beyond a once a year presentation from two of the boards. So I think that it would be good to, just highlight that is difficult for us and looking to see what options might be available to us.
Yeah, good. Yeah, agreed. Mark, anything to add to that? Or?
No, I think they both said it correctly. I no, nothing to add. I think we got to hit home the point. They're mandating us to engage with the school boards, but yet the school boards do not seem to be wanting to come to the table. So I think we need to really emphasize and ask that question of what avenue should we be taking to get them engaged, and what can they do in terms of the provincial government to get them to engage with us, right?
Might be a good question to ask.
Yeah.
Minister Calandra. Just what would he suggest that
Correct.
we do? Because what we've done so far has been we've had minimal success with that. So are there things that we could do with the boards without them feeling threatened?
That we're overstepping.
That we are overstepping. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's great. Maureen, does that give you enough?
Yeah. So initially, when you're doing an AMO request for a delegation, you have 300 characters, which is not much more than a little bit of a paragraph.
Right.
And so we'll put that. And then once we find out, then we have the opportunity to kind of, we can put together a fulsome briefing note, and we can pick up on some of the stuff that we've done in the past. So I think we can capably do that. We'll get that prepared in the interim anyway. We'll be optimistic that we'll be successful getting a delegation. But so the initial request is got to be awfully, you maximize every character.
Right. Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Was there anything else we needed for that you need for that, or we're good to go then?
I think we're good.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll move on then to 5.2, which is rural education funding. And just put that on the agenda tonight, Stephanie. Did you hear anything back from the school board at all on your or maybe you can give the committee a little bit of a summary of
Sure, or
what we talked about too, or whatever.
Yeah, or but maybe I mean, I can I'm trying to think if I could give a summary of how I came to wanting to talk about this, or maybe deal more with like the overall high-arching context that I think is maybe more relevant to the committee's work and maybe to the delegation. But like certainly if folks have more questions, like maybe you can ask me those after. But I mean, basically, like some of you have heard me refer to the Rural and Northern Education Fund, or now called allocation. It's you probably heard me mention it at AMO or Roma when I've asked, spoken with the minister, or even in delegations, and it's a funding stream from the Ministry of Education that was started back in 2017. It's meant specifically for rural and northern, school boards. It's designed to help those, the added costs of, delivering education in rural areas like SDG. We're operating small schools, and it's more difficult, and it's looked at as a funding option to help improve programming options. And folks might remember that back when this was first launched, so like 2018 2019 frame, the UCDSB actually used that funding to support a rural guidance counselor pilot at UCDSB high schools. And so it's an example of how that funding can be used for targeted like investment. And at the that I'm vice chair of the Community Schools Alliance, and we've long advocated to increase that RNEA funding. And we also use the list of schools that qualify for RNEA funding. We've referred to that list as that should be a list that's protected when the school moratorium is lifted. That schools that are on that RNEA list who are eligible for that funding, that they should be protected when the moratorium is lifted. So,
sorry, I'll just interrupt.
Yeah.
Have you had any success with that request to the Alliance or whatever?
So I mean, the funding has gone up over the years. So I mean, I would say that I would say definitely the Alliance has been part of that voice to continue increasing that funding. So like in terms of where, and also like when we brought using that list to protect rural schools, when we've spoken with the Minister of Education, I mean, we didn't get a definitive yes or no, but I mean, definitely the answer always included, a recognition that rural schools do need, one size fits all funding doesn't work, and that the RNEA, they viewed that as being a positive step. So, and yeah, it's at 24 million now across Ontario, the RNEA. And what's interesting is the UCDSB, so the Upper Canada, they receive in 2024-25, they received the most of any school board in Ontario of this funding. So it was $1.72 million. And the Catholic District School Board of East Ontario, they're the fifth most in the province at 800,000. The French Catholic Board, they received the seventh most at 770,000. The French Public Board is it's a smaller amount. They're further down the list, so I didn't include them. But if you add those three boards up, it's $3.3 million coming into our region from this funding stream alone. And so specific to my request is that I wanted to, and I'm, the RNEA school boards are meant to post how the money is used. That's part of the requirements. Currently in our region, only the Catholic District School Board of East Ontario posts the information. The other three don't. So what I think, again, for, if we want, I mean, if this is a funding stream that I think, has been making, differences across Ontario for rural education, if we'd like to continue advocating for it to be increased or to use it as a list to protect schools from the moratorium, I think it would be good for us to understand more about how it's being used in our region. So, I think it'd be important to add, I'd like the committee to ask, the school boards, to share how the RNEA funding is being used currently, and also like a summary of how it's been used in the past. And, because I do feel that with that information, that there's likely areas where we can co-advocate together. There's areas where we know specific, funding would be useful or helpful. And, our rural schools are unique and they have some unique needs. And that, if we understand better how the school boards are allocating that funding, that perhaps this is an opportunity for us to either joint advocate or even maybe opportunities for partnerships to augment that funding or help leverage its impact. So that's sort of my high level, my interest in this issue.
Okay. And so did you have any success with staff on finding out any information, or no?
Not at
No.
this time.
No.
I have reached out, and it's the recommendation is from the school board is that I go through very many steps, and so the first step is a meeting with one of the superintendents on this coming Friday. But again, this information is meant to be publicly available. They're meant to be posting it. So,
Right.
and again, I mean, in the spirit of, advocating together and improving outcomes for our region together, I think it would make sense for the committee to request this information. Because again, it's about schools all across our region. Because all our schools in SDG are essentially rural. And so
Yeah.
they're essentially all eligible for this funding.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll wait and see, I guess, until Friday. They meet on Friday and see what comes of that meeting or whatever. And maybe you could report back to us or whatever on what happens there. Is there anything you want this committee to do?
Well, again, like the my understanding of the meeting that's been proposed to me is very specific to like a specific high school. So again, I think the committee's view is more wide ranging. It's across SDG. So I think the committee I would recommend the committee put in a request for across our region to all the school boards.
Okay. Jennifer, did you have a
Yes, so definitely that's what I envision here is the opportunity for the Rural Education Committee to make a request to all 4 school boards. And then for us to have the opportunity to review, how those funds are being used throughout our region. And just look for opportunities for collaboration and just for the information purpose, right?
Yeah.
And we say that again, I know I didn't request for it to be on the agenda. If there's time, maybe we can still discuss data collection, but this could be a piece of that data collection of how is it being used by the various boards. How is this, like, these are significant dollars coming to our region. So for interest sake, I'd like to know how it's being used. I think our families would like to know, our municipalities would like to know. And then are there opportunities for collaborations and partnerships that we could be discussing?
Yep, good, very good point. So maybe Maureen, we could send out a letter of some sort to the 4 school boards. And maybe
Yep, we can take care of that.
yeah, actually maybe put my name on it as well, just because I've had contact with some of the
Oh, maybe we'll draft something, we'll get you to sign it and we'll
sure.
send it off.
Okay, yep, that
We'll
would
put
be
it in,
great.
we'll put it in a format that you can email to them or something like
Okay,
that.
sure. Okay, yeah, that
Okay.
would be great. And then
Okay.
it looks like it's coming directly from the committee and not from SDG. Again, trying to build up that communication, right, with the school boards or whatever as best we can. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
Stephanie, you were able to determine the funding that is awarded to these school boards. Are you getting that off of the provincial website?
So I went into like the regulation specifically. So
Yeah.
it is from the provincial regulation. So you have to do the math because like the regulation sets out tables and factors and enrollment numbers, and then you do the math for all the different school boards. So the actual number, like you won't find a number 1.72 million, but if you use the formula and the factors that are posted in the regulation, that's how you come to those
Okay.
numbers. So it's not at all straightforward, I would say.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. That sounds good. Anything else on that? Stephanie, do you have anything else to add to that? No? Good. Okay. All right, we'll move on to 5.3, which is Upper Canada District School Board Director of Education invitation to future Rural Education Committee meeting. So Maureen and I were talking and we were wondering whether it would be a good idea to invite the Director of Education, Ron Ferguson, to join us at one of our meetings in the near future. I mean, that might be a question we could pose to him too, what we've just discussed, right? About the rural education funding or whatever. And anyway, is that something the committee would be interested in approaching Ron?
Mhm.
Yeah, Jennifer?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think it would be a great opportunity to have, just this open-ended discussion about, and maybe that he could give us a little bit of information as to projects that are in the works for them.
Right.
It might also be an opportunity for an introduction to our new trustee for Ward 9.
Yes, okay.
That's a very good
Mhm.
point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we should yeah, I think Stephanie, when they appointed a trustee, correct?
Yeah, at the last
Last meeting,
trustees
yeah. Okay. All right,
earlier.
yeah, that would be a good thing to happen for sure. Would be to you know, either they could join us on the call too or whatever. Um, but that would probably have to go through the board chair or whatever, and I don't know. We'd see how that all plays out because sometimes we don't get a lot of support from the board chair. Yeah, Jennifer.
And maybe it's something where we want to separate the two and invite the director to come at one point to participate and then the trustee to
Yeah,
come at a different time.
different time.
So our new trustee for Ward 9, her name is Elizabeth Steinberg. She was appointed by the board a couple weeks ago, I believe now. She's from the Smith Falls region.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to meeting her and to understanding, how she plans to represent our ward, given that she doesn't have very close proximity to us.
No, that's
So
right.
I think we want to hear from her, what her interests are, what her focal points are, and why she wanted to become a trustee. And now she gets to represent us until the next election period.
Right.
So yeah, so I mean, I guess one branches into the other, but maybe it would
No,
be
I agree. I
preferable to
think
separate the two.
yes, I agree. I think it would be probably preferable to separate the two. So okay, well, let's see if we can work on that or whatever, and get both Ron and Elizabeth maybe to join us in a future meetings.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else, Maureen, on that or? Oh, you're muted.
I'm muted. It looks like when we're scheduling this meeting, we kind of just reached out on a limb and sent this out to everybody this evening, but it looks like Tuesday evenings, around 7:30 is the better time for everybody. So then what we can do is reach out to Ron Ferguson. We'll propose, a Tuesday evening and see if there's a date that works for him, and then we can re-engage the committee.
Okay, that would be great. Excellent. All right, and then 5.4 on the agenda was our community partnership or planning and partnership meeting with Catholic District School Board and the Upper Canada Board. That's June the 5th at 10 a.m. I'm registered for that meeting. So anyway, we'll see what they have. They're supposed to have all the whole slide deck is supposed to be on the websites of each. So I'm going to have a look at that. I don't know if it's on there yet. It'll probably be next week before it gets on there or whatever. But if you have anything in the meantime before, if you're looking at that slide deck or whatever, and you see something and you think something's not right there or whatever, just to send me a text or whatever and let me know what you're thinking or whatever on that. I don't think there's any opportunities for questions, if I remember correctly, in the past, or did you have to do that ahead of time? I can't remember how they set that up, but there didn't seem to be any sort of yes.
No, I unfortunately wasn't able to attend the last one, but the top one before they did have some very limited time for questions at the
Okay,
end.
yeah, maybe I don't remember the lot. I was at the last one or whatever, but I don't remember them.
Okay.
I don't remember if there was questions or not. So
If I
Yeah.
may, Jeff,
Yeah,
just I'm
sure.
looking real quickly at the UCDSB website, and they do have a little bit of information on their website already about it, including the schools that meet the criteria. That just UCDSB so far. It doesn't look like the Catholic district has posted yet, but
Okay.
the UCDSB schools that are meet the criteria for facilities collaboration,
Right.
which generally means that they have less than 60% of a utilization rate
Right.
that's less than 60%. And so the schools are listed. And so there are some schools in SDG, like Glengarry District, North Dundas, are listed, Tugwa, and
Public
Seaway.
listed.
Yeah, so Seaway Morrisburg Public School, Seaway District High School. Yeah, I'm surprised that oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was reading they have it listed by feeder group and then the school name. My
Okay.
apologies, my distinct apologies. I will start again. So again, going back to SDG, there's Glengarry District, North Dundas High School. There is Morrisburg Public School, Seaway District High School, Maxville Public School, and Rothwell Osnabrook Elementary School is also listed.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, as much as these are schools that are open to collaboration, I think it's important to remind ourselves that in the past, when the moratorium was not in place, this would be a list of schools that would be at risk for
Yeah.
closure.
Yes.
Not to take a negative stance on it, but
No.
but I mean, I think this is again this is the kind of stuff our committee, piggybacking on what Jennifer was saying before about information and data, like this is these, I would say if there's anything, critically we need to pay attention to, is the information around these schools specifically.
Right. Right. Jennifer?
I will just highlight also that it was at a CPPG meeting in, would it have been 2016, where they did divulge such a list. But conversations centered around, maybe a little bit more interesting things to talk about rather than capacity and utilization. And based on the audience that was attending this meeting, which I believe the meeting might have been in person too, so there might have been limited in-person audience. A lot of the conversations surrounded around community use of schools and how are you using our soccer fields and our gymnasiums, et cetera. And it was, highly missed in this region that they were also there to tell us that these are the schools that are, have very low utilization numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been really the first indication, which, assuming that they had the meeting again in June at that time, would have been an earlier indication than, September.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I
So
think pointed questions to that, to the school board, and then keeping that in mind at AMO for any delegation also surrounding moratorium.
mhm. Well, and it would be nice to have, yeah, some direction on the moratorium or whatever. And if they're looking at a different moratorium for rural education as opposed to, cities.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think that's all on our agenda for tonight. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up tonight? Jennifer?
Thank you. Just wondering if there's still an appetite. We have discussed it at past meetings to look at data collection. We talk about it, but we haven't really gotten it there where we have, put our heads together with a plan as to what data fields need to be tracked. Some of the information is available, like it's open source information and it's available. Whether it's correct, we're not so sure, but we could certainly be starting there. I don't know if there's an opportunity with any, corporate services summer student or planning summer student that could, basically work on a spreadsheet. But I will say that following the trends and knowing your data for your schools in SDG, could be really, really important. Had we had that in 2016, it would have been an amazing tool to have while we were working, to keep our schools open.
Now, specifically, what Jennifer are you looking for data? Because I was looking at the websites or whatever, and there's a lot of information there.
Well, there's a lot of information. Let's just take the UCDSB, for example. If you're to look at the UCDSB, you're looking at a humongous board. I just want to streamline it to be looking at our schools within, SDG.
Okay.
And then I'd want to be looking at capacity, utilization, enrollment, and maybe some past enrollment. If we could get enrollment by grade, that's also something to be watching. When you're going from a consistent kindergarten enrollment of 20 plus students every year, then all of a sudden it drops. Well, then that's an opportunity to ask a question as to, well, what's changed? Has programming changed? Has something changed? To be looking at partnerships, community partners in schools, like who's leasing space? Is there a daycare in our school? So to have a list of all of our schools and to know at this school there's a daycare or there's a before and after school program. We have TR Leger that has a satellite office. The board is using space there for offices. What do we have for community use of schools? Is there a gymnasium, a commercial kitchen, a library, meeting rooms, etc., auditorium? I think we need an inventory of our own school, and of our own schools. It's duplication, and we shouldn't need to have that duplication of data. But I think in our own self-interest for our own rural schools, we need to know what we have and what's changing from year to year. And to be able to do a very quick analysis, you have to not be looking at all of the schools of each of our 4 boards all at once. Like there's no way to actually notice the trends unless you have a very sophisticated spreadsheet. Facility condition index as well. So that's interesting to note. Usually that's posted for our schools. And so that's where you can see also if a school is given, a rating that's consistently deteriorating and the school board's not investing in the school, what investments of capital projects are they doing? Programming, I mean, in the past, whether, an elementary school, has French immersion or not, as we very well know, can drastically change the outcome of the success of a school. So, those are some of the types of things that I envision. Certainly, I think that if our entire committee put their heads together, we might come up with a few others. But from there, this could be a fairly easy to start project, but we have to start it. And I think I kind of feel like we've been talking about it for a couple, like almost more than one term of council now, that maybe this is something we should be doing. But I don't want to wait until it's urgent. And I think that there's a lot of value in tracking over time. So if we were to start it now, that we could continue to follow.
Okay, Mark, you had your hand up.
Well, I don't want to be the kind of the poo-poo here, but who is qualified to do this? I mean, this data collecting, in my opinion, is a full-time position, and probably is going to take somebody a couple months. I'm totally with you, Jennifer, on what we need. So you got to help me, pardon the expression, educate me. Like, how easy would a student? I mean, understanding the data collecting, but then when you start talking about capital projects and you start talking about stuff like that, like where would we start? Who would we? I just want to be careful here because what I'm hearing is somebody's doing this as a full-time data collecting project. And I see Stephanie kind of smiling at me, but that's what I'm hearing.
Most of the information is already
educate me on
posted.
how something this could be, because it sounds pretty sophisticated to me.
Yeah. Well, Stephanie probably can add to this, but most of the information is already on school board websites. So it's a matter of transposing it into our own spreadsheet of what we want to see and transposing it from the various school board websites with the list of schools that we have in the different fields that we want. So it's just a transposition of data that already exists. It's not about sending somebody in to rate the facility's conditions. It's about that indices has already been posted for each school by the school boards. So it's just about putting it on our spreadsheet so that we have the opportunity to review and be able to analyze the data a little bit, which would prompt us to be asking some questions.
Okay,
Mhm.
so the key measure here then is we need to get the attention of the people to ask the questions to, because again, if the school boards aren't coming to the table now, who are we asking, and what is it just going to fall on deaf ears, I guess, right? So I like what you're saying, so I appreciate that little piece of education for me again. Pardon the pun. But Maureen, do you think this is something that we can start easily developing, or?
So maybe just quickly, we don't have a student in corporate services. Many of our student positions that we have at the counties are already fully engaged on projects for the summer. We do have a bit of money for this committee, so we could look at whether or not, we could engage a student, and it could be done remotely, right? Like they don't have to be in our office necessarily to do this. I guess a question that I have, and I may have mentioned this in the past, but do we want to focus on like a certain number of schools in our region that maybe have like a lower utilization rate, right? Like I don't know that it makes sense to, pull the data on schools that we know are likely thriving or expanding a bit. Do we want to kind of, if our focus is maybe our concern is about potential school closures, do we want to focus on some of the schools that we think are not being fully utilized in certain areas, right? And all of the members of this committee all represent part of a geographical area within SDG. So rather than do it for all schools, because I think when I went in to look at the data for Upper Canada District School Board, like the problem is you're drilling in by school. Like it's not as though I don't think you can click one field and get all of the data and search it for all schools, right? So I think you'd have to go in for each individual school and pull the data. I believe is how the data is set up. At least that's the way it is, I think, in Upper Canada District School Board.
Okay, Stephanie, do you have something to add on that?
Yeah, so yeah, definitely on the Upper Canada District School Board, they have these like school information profiles where
Right.
they have a lot of that information, and it is cumbersome, right? Like it's school by school, and then it's like field by field. Sometimes you have to click on the field to then get an expansion of that information. So yeah, it's not, but so it's not super easy to do. So yeah, but also like the Ontario government has an open data source where a lot of the information, the same information, is posted, and it's actually the reverse. And so, like when I was trying to find more information about the RNEA, I'm going to that Ontario, open data source, and there the challenge is it's listed for every school and every school board across Ontario. So, but someone who is like handy with Excel or is good with VLOOKUPs, like, those are complete data sets. And then they could, use they could, set up a filter basically just to like pull out the data that's related to our school boards, in our region. So so if we were using the Ontario government data source, I think it'd be actually easier to do more than less. It would be easier to pull out all the school board, like everything for UCDSB, versus just trying to pick specific schools. But I hear what you're saying, that for, if we use the UCDSB's portal and how their data is set up, it's a little bit clunky. But I mean, they have a database that is feeding, like what the UCDSB, their pages they have, there's a database feeding that in the background. So I mean, if we had great communication, like it would be great to just say, hey, could we just have the database that's
Right.
feeding those those individual sheets. But if that is not a possibility, then I would say the Ontario government website. And I'd be happy, like Jen's brain dump there. Literally, I mean, I think she had all the different items that I thought that were most important. And then if there would be someone who could be assigned to this, I'd be more than happy to try, like give them, like walk through sort of getting them started and where to go and that sort of thing. It's just, I'm not going to say it's months tasks, but it's probably, like couple of days or maybe a week's worth of work, I would say. And I don't have a week's worth of time to put towards it, but I'd be more than happy to help someone get started on it.
Okay. The
Have we asked the UCDSB for
no,
the?
I was just wondering that.
No.
I wonder if that's
So,
something we could ask Ron about.
so yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Mhm.
Kimberly and I did have a call one day with the Upper Canada District School Board, and they were really good to help us navigate and understand the data. I found them to be, quite helpful. So I'm wondering if we did invite Ron for a meeting, and if we did put that ask forward, maybe there's an opportunity, because it is all public information, right? Like we do this in municipalities all the time.
Mhm.
So maybe that's, and at least, if we were able to get it for Upper Canada District School Board, if they are, they might be one of the easier ones. It's the largest school board. That would be a great starting point if we're successful with that. And then it might lead us to be able to then, hop on to try and get the other three school boards to be equally as
Equal, yeah, to give it the data.
sharing of data.
Yeah. All right. Does that sound like a start, Jennifer? If we can try to get some data here from we'll start with Ron.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, it's worth it. It's worth asking, and if that can reduce the workload, I think that that's a good start. I'd just be really happy to get it started,
Yeah.
and then maybe that we just continue to follow this from our next agendas, so that we continue to kind of move it forward.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right. That sounds
I think we're gonna have to, we'll have to try and figure out exactly how, like what we think's involved, how much time it's gonna take, because if we
Mhm.
want to engage someone to do it, we'll have to set something up properly.
yeah. We'll have to know. Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, if you may, like what Jen was saying about like this information is critical. And like I don't want to say we've been kind of spoiled, but with the moratorium, like it's really shielded us from having to do a lot of this work. And if the moratorium is lifted and rural schools are not protected, like we're going to be scrambling for this. So I think we really need to take this time. And I mean, the moratorium I can't imagine that it will live on forever. And the
No.
longer it goes, the more the likelihood of it being lifted. So I think, now is the best time to try and get this get this going, so that we are, as well equipped as possible when the moratorium is lifted.
Is there a concern that we're going to be collecting data now that won't be relevant 2 years down the road?
Oh, no, I would say trending is the most important thing. I mean, obviously that point in time at, if when that moratorium is lifted, or if something's proposed, I'd say that is the most important. But the trends are really what are going to determine, what a proposal might be about a specific school,
Okay. All right.
in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Anything further then tonight? So we'll try and set up a meeting with Ron Ferguson. We'll try to get that not too distant future or whatever. It would be nice to get some information from him too or whatever, and hopefully he'll be a good candidate to join our group here for a night. So, all right. Anything else anybody has tonight? All right. So I will call for an adjournment. Thank you, Jennifer. Seconder Stephanie, thank you. All right, sounds good, everybody. And hopefully we'll hear something maybe a little bit in the next Thursday or whatever at the